Welcome back to the Kiwi Wedding Podcast. My name is Lydia and I'm a wedding photographer based in Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland. Today on the podcast I have the lovely Hope. Hope got married at Mudbrick on Waiheke Island. I know we have featured a few weddings from Mudbrick on the podcast before, which it is a beautiful and quite popular venue over there for good reason. And we will get the same venues popping up now and again, which I don't want to deter you. I feel like every wedding is unique and different in its own way. Even if you have listened to a few from the same venue already, I still encourage you to listen right through, and Hope has some amazing advice and unique perspective with her wedding. We chat through how her and Nick met and were friends for years first before they ended up dating, all about their beautiful beach proposal, planning a wedding that included all their special people and giving people particular roles on the day, the process of getting a custom dress made, a few unexpected things leading up to the day that were mini disasters but didn't derail the actual day or that they can look back and laugh at now, what they expected to spend and what they actually spent, and things you can do to save in particular areas. A few minor things she would do differently looking back. We chat about going on honeymoon straight after your wedding, why communication is key throughout the whole planning process, especially with your partner, and so much more. Enjoy episode 38 with Hope. Hi Hope, thanks so much for coming on the podcast today. So excited to chat to you all about your wedding.
Yes, thanks so much for having me. It's so nice to meet you, see me face to face.
Oh, so good. So just to get started off with, if you could tell me a little bit about you and your partner, how you guys met and your life together.
Yeah, so my partner's name's Nick. We actually met at a Disclosure concert first off. I did arrive with a separate date. And it did happen to be one of his friends. So it's an interesting story. But yeah, quite clearly the timing was off when we first met. But we did form a really strong friendship initially. So we ended up being flatmates for, I want to say, two, maybe even 3 years before we even started dating. And then, kind of out of nowhere, when we both happened to be single at the same time, it just happened at, in a Roxy booth in town on a night out. Just really randomly, we just kind of kissed, and then it happened really fast after that, and we were just sort of like, oh my gosh, have we been blind to this the whole time? And all our friends and family were like, yes, finally you guys can see what we've been seeing for all this time. So yeah, that was kind of how we met and our story. But it's quite cool because we just know each other inside and out, and we've seen each other at our lowest, and our ultimate highs have all been together as well. So it's just it's a really cool base to have that sort of friendship before you move into that next stage. And I think a lot of people think, oh, there was probably feelings always there, and yeah, they probably were, and we were probably just completely oblivious to it. And looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, it all kind of gels and makes sense. So that's kind of how we met. Yeah,
such a good story. Always find that interesting, like when people are friends for so long and then something just changes. But it's just like the right timing all clicks into place. So
absolutely.
So good.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a bit about your proposal story and how that all went down?
Yes. So he did pretty well. Nick's pretty extra when it comes to spoiling me, which I love. But it was my birthday, so I feel like all the sort of secrecy made sense. Like I just assumed it was just all to do with my birthday. And it was my birthday week, and we kind of had my birthday earlier in the week, and that was all kind of done. And then Thursday night rolled around, and we got home, and he's like, you need to pack a bag, we're going away. And I was like, oh, that sounds amazing, but I'm so flat tack at work, like I just take Friday off, like. And he's like, no, I've called your boss, it's all sorted. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I just text my boss, I'm like, hey, is this okay, like am I okay to go away, like is it all good? She's like, yes, go have some fun, la la la. And we went down to Pauanui, which is a real special place for us. Like my grandparents have a batch there, kind of growing up there. We ended up rooftop tenting because we've got a rooftop tent, and just had sort of the best day. Like it was sunny, it was the best beach day. We were in and out of the water, having a few drinks on the beach, just chilling. And then yeah, we went back to the campsite, and I was like, should we pop a bottle of champagne, like it's my birthday, like. and, and he's like, oh, and he was worried the whole time that I was just going to get a little bit too drunk. And so he was like, slow down, like, and he was kind of just being a bit like, I could tell he was off, but at the time I didn't really think much of it. And he's like, how about we go down to the beach and have like the bottle down there? And I was like, yeah, okay, that could be cool. And he went off to the bathroom, and he came back, and he had his like jersey tied around his waist, which he never does. And I was like, oh, he's just been so off. And I'm like, oh, you've got a jersey. It's not even that cold. I didn't think about it at the time, but now it all makes sense. And yeah, he was trying to obviously hide the ring. And yeah, walking down the beach, and he was just silent. Like, I was just like, God, what is, oh, like, is he just stressed about work? Like, what's going on? And I was like, well, how about we sit down? Like, we've been walking for quite a while. And then, yeah, and then before we sat down, he kind of just got down on one knee, and the ring came out. And it's just such a surreal moment. Like, you hear about everyone's stories over and over again, and you see, people being proposed to on movies and all that kind of stuff. And it's until you experience it, you don't understand just how much it just blurs. And he was saying all these nice things, I think, I don't know, it just kind of all blurred into one. And I was sobbing, and I just couldn't believe he had this gorgeous ring in front of me, because I was like, how have you hidden, like, how has this all come to be and I've not cottoned on? Like, it's, yeah. And I guess the most special part after that was we just sat on the beach, and we just talked and talked and talked, and I wanted to know every detail, like who knew, how did he do it, where did the ring come from, like how did he know that's exactly what I wanted. So yeah, it was just insane. It was so cool, like this, such an intense bubble moment where you are like, you're going to marry them, but and when it happens, you're like, just this intense moment of you guys have chose each other. Like, it's just so cool. I'm getting emotional.
Such a cool story, and even more special spot now. And yeah, so
Yeah,
nice to just like sit down and enjoy it, and then yeah, celebrate with friends and stuff later.
absolutely. Yeah.
And so, had you always been one of those girls that dreamed about what you wanted your wedding to be? And did you have a vision and vibe in mind? And yeah, how did that planning process start off?
I guess, I mean, like, I would probably deem myself quite a girly girl, but I had never really envisioned what my wedding would be like. Like, I love weddings. I've always loved weddings, and but I hadn't really, I guess I was always like, it really depends on who I marry. Like, it wasn't just my vision. And I think until, you start dating someone that you're like, holy, I could really marry this person, that's when the vision really comes to life a bit more. So yeah, I guess we knew straight away that we wanted it to be sort of a big party. And I guess one of our non-negotiables was that we wanted the bulk of our guest list to be able to come. And I think, yeah, that's kind of what then set the tone for the rest of the planning, was that our people and us as a couple was the real highlight of the whole thing. And that, like, our people being there and the roles that they played were, yeah, was what I wanted to focus on. And instead of it being like, what theme is it going to be? Obviously that comes as well, but that was our main priority, is that making sure everyone can be there.
Cool. And how did you go about finding your venue?
Yeah, so I guess that was another thing, because we had always we did toy around with the idea of a destination wedding, but ruled it out pretty quickly, just because of wanted the bulk of the guest list to be there. And that's kind of when we landed on somewhere like Waiheke, because we were like, well, it does sort of feel like you're still away when you're there. People can make a holiday out of it, or if you just want to come over for the wedding and go home again, you can. So that's kind of like why we decided to go. We started looking at venues on Waiheke. Mudbrick had always been in the back of both our heads. We've both been there before and loved it. It kind of has that sort of beautiful European sort of vibe. The gardens there are lovely. My mum's a florist and landscaper, so that was always been, big in our family. So yeah, and then we went there for, I think we went there for lunch and some drinks one day, and did a site visit with the wedding coordinator there. And we did have a few other places lined up, and we just couldn't go past it. We just were just like, oh, it's just right. It's just so beautiful. I loved that it had on-site accommodation for the night of. I loved that the ceremony and the reception had two sort of separate locations. I loved that there was a rainy day option. It was just ticking all boxes. And yeah, venue shopping was so fun. But yeah, we just went as soon as we stepped foot in Mudbrick, we just didn't look back.
Such a cool spot. Yeah, like you said, so many green flags and yeah,
Yeah,
reasons, different
yeah.
options and spaces. So yeah, it's so beautiful. And what were the most important elements when it came to the day for you? Obviously, you mentioned your people being there, but yeah, anything else in terms of vendors, dress, food, all of that?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was so yeah, I kind of mentioned before the roles that our people played. So we really wanted to make sure that those closest to us had a role, but it's a fine line between loading people up on the day and making them feel like you really want them to have a big role in the wedding, because you want them to enjoy the day as well. So you don't want to be like, this is your checklist. um, but just things like, I really wanted mum to have a part, so she did sort of like this poem at the ceremony. My brother was our MC. My other brother was in the bridal party, and then my other brother, well, I've got three brothers. My other brother was a witness, which was perfect for him because he doesn't like speaking or anything. And then yeah, and then with same with Nick's side, we really included them in elements as well throughout sort of the whole experience. But then vendors were so important as well, surrounding yourself with the right people that just get what you're trying to achieve. We had Lisa as our celebrant, and I just could not recommend her enough. She is phenomenal. If I was to do it again, probably one of the biggest things I would change is I would hire her for the on-day coordinator part as well. She, even though she was just our celebrant for the day, she just brought this calmness to everybody, and she's just done so many. She's so experienced, so she just knows what to look for, eh? And same with Mudbrick. I just felt like they've done it before. They know what to look for. Yeah, and just once you find those vendors and you click with them, having the ability to just hand over and fully put your trust in them is so important as well, because at the end of the day, they know what they're doing.
Oh, so good. Great advice as well. And can you tell me a bit about your wedding outfits, your dress, how that whole process was finding it?
Yeah, so I couldn't wait to go wedding dress shopping when we first got engaged. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. But it did become a bit overwhelming. Like, I wasn't prepared for that. There's so many options out there these days, which is great, but you can kind of get lost in what you think you like, and you can go into it thinking you like one style, and it just shows the importance of trying things on. Because you do, like, someone can tell you to your face you look gorgeous in that, but unless you feel good, you're not gonna feel good. So I did start to feel a little bit overwhelmed until I went to my consult with Trish, and I just found her again. It's just finding that those vendors and those people that you click with, and just can they just get you. And that's what Trish was as well for this experience. And she just sort of read my mind and was sort of like, well, we could do this, we could do this. And we ended up going custom. And I loved the whole experience. I loved the team. I loved, each time you came, and if you weren't comfortable, they read you so well. They're kind of like, how you feeling? You feel completely comfortable and confident to speak up if you want to change things. And there is this little bit of scary element to going custom as well, because it's kind of like you don't see the full masterpiece until it's complete. So you're kind of like, through the whole journey, you're like, oh, I hope it's how I envision it. And sure enough, it was beyond. So yeah, and then the boys went down. The boys were a lot more chilled and left things a lot later, as they do. Nick's like, oh, no, he kind of knew he wanted to go classic black suit the whole time. So he's like, it's easy, babe. Don't worry, I've got it. And I'm like, we should book in. He's like, he was like, well, I don't get to see you, so you don't get to come see me, even though I've seen him in suits plenty of times. But I was like, you know what, fair enough. That's you. You do your thing. And so he just sorted all that. They went with Rembrandt. And yeah, they looked great on the day as well. So yeah, we really, really enjoyed what we wore. Although Nick did split his pants on the dance floor.
Oh, just a sign of a good party, hey?
I know. It was like not even a small split. It was like full. Yeah. So that was pretty funny.
No holding back, least it was at the end of the day.
I know. Yeah. Thank God.
Such a nice process. And who was in your bridal party? Did you find that quite an easy process choosing them?
Yeah, definitely. We had four each, and they were all, a mixture of close friends. Nick had his brother and his cousin, and my brother and his best mate. And then, yeah, mine was sort of all very, very close friends that I've had over the years. I think the one thing I probably do regret is not having a couple of others. And it's funny how much can change in a year in terms of your relationships with people. The four that I had obviously were amazing, wouldn't change that for the world. But I did probably become even closer with a couple of my good mates through the wedding process, and they were just so there and available and helpful. And I think that's probably my only regret, is not having them there. And you kind of sometimes get stuck in the tradition of things, and like, oh well, we got to have even bridal party sides and this and that, and is it going to be weird if I have more, and is it going to be weird if I ask them later than the other girls, and you get stuck in your head on like what's normal, and it's like, throw that out the window. It doesn't matter, it's your day. You can make your own rules. So I probably should have just asked them, and they would have happily been like, yeah. So that's probably the only thing that I would have changed around who we had. But equally so, they still, your guests are still a massive part of your day anyway, so it didn't matter.
Oh, so good. And how did you go with the guest list? Did you find that quite a difficult process narrowing it down?
Yeah, it's such a weird one. Hey, because I have a massive family for one, so and I'm very close with all of them. So there was never an element of, oh, I've got to invite cousin Susie or whatever. There wasn't really that, because I wanted to invite all my cousins and all my aunties and uncles, and that. So, but they did that. They are a large crew, so that automatically is like, you need to really assess, who's going to be there out of your friends and all that kind of thing. And you can go down a bit of a wormhole where you're like, oh well, we're inviting this person, so should we invite this person? And then you start feeling guilty, and then you end up inviting people for the sake of inviting people. And it's like, I got some really good advice from someone, and it was like, if you wouldn't invite them to your birthday party, they probably don't really need to be at your wedding. And I was like, wow, that's so enlightening, because that's so true. Like, I wouldn't invite some of these people to my birthday party. So it was kind of like, yeah, okay, yeah. It's funny because we did have some overseas people that we would have loved to have been there, but obviously just can't. Mudbrick did have a max capacity, which in a way made things easier, because then you kind of like, okay, this is our cutoff point. And then if we went over that, then we kind of did like a second round of invites. If it was like, so for things like partners that we'd never met before, we kind of were like, okay, well, they're the only person coming, they don't really know anyone else, we'll invite their partner later on if there's room, that sort of thing. But yeah, it's so easy to get carried away and just add on and add on and add on, but you learn very quickly that those costs add up, and all of a sudden you're over budget. So yeah.
Yeah, it can be such a tricky process, but yeah, that's some great advice about the birthday party thing as well. It's a good one to think about. And can you tell us a bit about the big day, how it all went down, and yeah, any highlights or favorite moments?
Yeah, it's funny looking back on it, and when people ask me, I probably at the time didn't realize how much went wrong. Like especially in the lead up, there was just so many things that happened. Like my makeup artist got COVID the day before, so I had to, or 2 days before or something, so I had to find another makeup artist, which was actually very easy because I was getting married on a Tuesday. So that didn't actually become, it was kind of like I had someone else booked in within an hour. So that was great. My maid of honor's little 4-month-old had to be rushed to the emergency room the day of the wedding because he was very sick, and our cake was a disaster, and wasn't what we thought it was going to be. It was like one of those, wish items, when they compare. It was, yeah, it was, but it's all very, it's so funny. But yeah, there was just so many sort of series of unfortunate events, I guess. When we turned up at our wedding accommodation, they had booked for the surge, like the tanks to be emptied. So they were like emptying. I was like, really, like the smell, and I was just like, oh my gosh. Look, it was kind of funny, and I guess I'm not naturally an overly stressy person, but with the height of like the wedding and your heightened emotions and everything going on, you're kind of like in this weird out of body experience through the whole week of the lead up to your wedding, like, oh my gosh, is this really happening? And nothing really did push me over the line, but yeah, in terms of the day, it just all just felt like it just all came together. And it always, it's kind of that old saying, like, if the rehearsal and if the lead up is all, rubbish, the day tends to be really good. And that's kind of how it all happened. And I just remember standing, we were in one of the bedrooms at the lodge in Mudbrick before we walked out, and I just remember looking around at all my girls and my dad, and we were like, holy crap, it's here, this is happening. And they all kind of gave me one more look before they walked out down the aisle. And then dad was like, there was no real words said. Dad just sort of like squeezed my hand, and we just knew it was time. And then yeah, we walked out, and it was kind of just like, wow, we've created this day. These are all my people here, they're looking at me, and there's my future husband standing at the end of the aisle. And I just remember that being probably the most like surreal moment of the day. Like, and everything looked gorgeous, like the chandeliers that had been put up, the flowers, everyone, like all my friends and families had, made an effort to look stunning. And I was just like, my God, it's so beautiful. And I couldn't, because I was really worried about being emotional, because I am quite a like animated emotional person. And I was just worried I was going to be sobbing, walking down the aisle and just snot pouring out my nose and stuff. But I just couldn't stop smiling. I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm so, so happy. And yeah, and it was just like the ceremony was probably the favorite part of the day. Just, yeah, it's so surreal.
It sounds like such a special day, and it looked stunning from all your photos. So we'll definitely share a few of them. And yeah, what did you find the hardest part about the wedding planning process? Is there anything you look back on and regret or would do a bit differently?
Yeah, always. You always look back and kind of are like, oh, I should have done this or this. I think for me, I hadn't actually had much experience with weddings myself, like going to them or being part of a bridal party. So I didn't really know what like I needed from people, and I hadn't experienced enough to know what to delegate to people. And I think, yeah, it's probably the hardest part was managing other people's expectations of what the day was to them, because you do need to acknowledge that, even though people are like, it's about you as a couple, and that's all that matters, 100%. But there is an element of, it is your family is so excited for you as well. Like they've been waiting for this day just as much, and you do need to allow them to, you know, kind of have their say in a way, but manage that to be like, okay, thank you for your opinion, but we're going to go this direction at the end of the day. But yeah, there definitely is that. But also, I think, you know, I'm very, very close with my mum, and me and her are on the same page of everything. And we kind of had in our heads exactly how we wanted everything to be. And we almost told too many people instead of just delegating small parts to one individuals, if that makes sense. So I think, yeah, getting your delegating is so important, and it can be as simple as, hey, you're on the music for the whole day. I want you to make sure that there's music pumping when we're getting ready. I want you to make sure that, you know, when we're getting our photos done, you bring the UE boom, that there's you know, and things, just small things like that. Like, you know, when we went off to get our photos, I totally forgot we'd done up a drinks basket, and we'd had it all there with the champagne and the bottles and things, and just nobody grabbed it because we were all in the moment, and I hadn't asked one, like I hadn't kind of said, hey, that's your job. And I think that's probably, yeah, super important, is because everyone knows what you want, but then if you don't just ask one person, it kind of like the day gets, it just takes over. It didn't matter in the end, but yeah, I think that would be like, if I was to go back and do it again, that would be what I would change. And then, yeah, I think for brides too, it's like if you are engaged and you go to weddings, you see them in a very different light now, and you can kind of pick up. And if you are on a bridal party, just take note and kind of be like, okay, this is what they're needing, this is what they're feeling. And yeah, it kind of opens your eyes a bit into the other side of it, behind the curtain. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, most people getting married, it's the first time they've ever done it. And so you don't really have that experience, or you might not know beforehand what you needed. Like hindsight's beautiful afterwards.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But yeah, some great advice. If you're happy to talk about your budget, did you have one, and did you end up going over it? Like a ballpark figure of what you spent and how all that went?
100%. I think that's something that is quite not spoken about. Before I went into planning, I kind of was like, oh, you know, 20-30K should do it. Um no. And so we kind of sat down and we were like, okay, you know, what do we include in our budget as well? Because I think people have different ideas on, you know, you tell people what you ended up spending and they'll like almost fall off your chair, and you're kind of like, yeah, but that's everything. So like, what do you include in your budget? Some people might not include the rings, some, you know, some people might not include the accommodation, the travel to get there. I think because we were getting married on Waiheke, we did need to include all that, because our vendors all charged a little bit extra to get the ferries across, which is completely fair enough, but it does add up. And so if you kind of don't include that in your initial budgeting, you kind of get smacked with this extra cost at the end. So yeah, we kind of went into it. I think we kind of were thinking around 40 to 50K initially, and I think all up we ended up spending, including majority of things, probably closer to 75, maybe even 80. I can't quite remember. There were a few costs that came at the end, and I think because, you know, if you do it, if you try pay your deposits and pay things off throughout the time before you get married, it doesn't seem as full on at the end. But also you got to be careful about that, because it's like, well, how much are you pouring into this one day? So yeah, I think we had no idea that's how much it was going to cost us. And when we talk about it now, we're like, oh my gosh, we did spend that much. But hey, it's to us, it wasn't just the day, it was the whole lead up, the whole experience. We'll look back on this time in years and years to come and remember it forever. And yeah, so it is a lot of money, and you can definitely look at ways at cutting costs. Like we did simple things, like I got married in April, which was technically Mudbrick's off-peak time. So we got like their winter pricing, which was significantly cheaper than their summer pricing. We got married on a Tuesday, which some people are a little bit against, but I think post COVID, people don't tend to care as much. And also, I'm kind of like, well, if people can't take an annual leave day for me, then that's enough said.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's lots of small ways that you can actually dramatically reduce what you're spending as well, and just do your research. A lot of venues have hidden costs. They might not include cutlery or plates, or they don't include security costs or staffing costs. Whereas, Mudbrick were really good. What their cost was per head was what their cost was. There was no additional cost. And of course, if you want to go above and beyond in the decor and bring in your own things, you can. But the ability to use their stuff was saved us so much money as well. So yeah, it's just, I mean, I personally loved kind of the challenge of finding like how the puzzle all fit together with, and was there a cheaper way of doing this without jeopardizing what the overall vibe was that we wanted to. And sometimes no, sometimes you do just need to pay the money, and you get what you get. And other times there are other ways and other avenues. So yeah, I think it always is a bit of a shock to couples, and it's unfortunate because sometimes the celebration of the engagement can be deeply overshadowed by the expense of the wedding, and people get into this rut of, oh my gosh, do we need to take out loans and all this stuff. And it's sad because this should be such an exciting time, and sometimes ends up being so financially stressful for people. But I think that's why it's so important with your partner to just really communicate and having those open conversations from the get-go, and that'll help in the long run for sure.
Yeah, so good. Just great to talk about that. And yeah, people don't often know what they're getting into, or yeah, you can obviously plan weddings of all different budgets, but yeah, that's a pretty standard kind of cost these days. And yeah, like you say, it is spread out over a year or however long you're engaged, and not like you're just dropping that all in one go.
Yeah, yeah.
There's ways you can work around it for sure. And did you guys go on honeymoon straight away? What did planning that look like?
Yes, we did. We flew out to Mexico the next day, and I, if I was to give advice, I would highly recommend doing it. Just plan your honeymoon as soon and as close to your wedding as possible, because I think a lot of people either just don't end up doing it, or it doesn't feel, I mean, this is just my personal experiences. It kind of just almost opened up the whole wedding experience even more, and it allowed me and Nick to just have this little bubble of debriefing time. And oh my gosh, like, we've done that, we've just got married, and just such quality time for the two of us. And then when we came back from our honeymoon, it was like almost like the second wind of celebration, because all our family and friends still wanted to debrief with us, and oh my gosh, yeah, you're back, and all that kind of thing. So we definitely thoroughly enjoyed it. We did fly out the next day, which logistically, with a lot of the things that you need to like unpack and take back from Waiheke, I'm sorry, mum and dad, because they handled most things for us, which I know some people don't have the luxury of handing that over to someone. So we were really, really lucky that my whole family would just sort of took over and just put us on the plane. But yeah, we absolutely adored that time, and it really prolonged the celebration, like kind of extended, sorry, the celebration for us. So yeah, I would recommend trying to plan it as close to the wedding as possible.
Yeah, that's cool to hear. It's a lot of people kind of wait or do something a bit more chill and then go overseas later. But yeah, I love to hear the other option of just going straight away and you're still on that high and just, yeah, straight into honeymoon bliss. And were there any helpful websites or apps, different resources that you used during the wedding planning process for like finding vendors and all of that?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think I went to the Wild Hearts Wedding Fair, which was really good. Yeah, just for kind of being a bit of a creep and going and following a whole lot of girls that are getting married. or have just been married, and kind of I think that was probably the most authentic way for like me, because I just wanted those real stories, or like looking for people that have done Q&As or like podcasts like yourselves, because you kind of get the real raw story with that when you kind of are talking to real couples. Sometimes like really good magazines, or like Instagram handles that are showing all these beautiful, stunning weddings. They're either way out of your budget, and when you start diving down, you're like, okay, that's beautiful and great inspiration, but how the hell did they get there? Like, how the hell did they do it? What went wrong? What went right? Like, what And so it's like just talking to people and listening to people's stories and who had been through it before, reaching out to people that I kind of knew who'd been married, and what were their non-negotiables, what was their advice. That was the main part that fired me and Nick, and how we kind of navigated the whole journey, because um, you're dealing with real relatable people, who will tell it how it is. Yeah. So I think that was just, yeah, other people. I think, again, going back to, like, I didn't have many friends that had been married before either, so it was kind of like you just don't know when to start. But people love talking about their experience. People love talking about their weddings. They've spent so much time and energy. People are actually really, really happy to help. So yeah, just reaching out to people, and yeah.
Yeah, so good. Online and Instagram, so good for that. And yeah, like you say, if you don't have many like friends or family going through it at the same time, it's just nice to find people that are in that same season as you, and yeah, can just share like advice and recommendations as well. Is there any advice that you would give to couples that are planning their wedding at the moment?
Yes. Yeah, of course. I think, I think I touched on this a little bit throughout, but yeah, try not to see it as just a day. Try to see it as a whole journey, as the start of your marriage. It's not just a day, it's not just the wedding day. Communicate and sit down, and don't be afraid to really dive into your non negotiables with your partner. And if you ever get stuck, or if you ever feel like you're veering away, come back to that planning session, and look at those non-negotiables, and communicate with each other, and communicate what your expectations of each other is through that planning process. Is Traditionally, a lot of the planning tends to be the female, but I know for Nick, I kind of assumed he wouldn't really care, but he actually did. He really wanted to be involved. He had his own opinions. He didn't want colored flowers. He really wanted white flowers. And I was like, oh, okay. So, like, you need to have those conversations, and equally so for the female, or whoever your partners, whoever it is, one side can feel like they're doing all the planning, but unless you communicate that to your partner, they don't know. So what are your expectations of your partner throughout the whole process, and just going back, and making sure you don't deter away from that, because you can it's so easy to get lost. It's so easy to go on another pathway and like change the whole tune of what it's all about. It happens to everyone, and then you're kind of like, whoa, 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 take a step back. No, we need to knock it on the head. This is what we want, this is our non-negotiables, we're good. So yeah, communication really, and just enjoying the journey, because it is really, really special, and it's something that hopefully you only do once.
Yeah. Oh, that's great advice. It's yeah, so important. I think there is a lot of emotions and things that come with planning a wedding, and it can like test your relationship a little bit. So just yeah, that communication piece right from the get-go is so important. And what is married life like now? You've been married a little while. Did you feel like you got any of the post-wedding blues?
You know what? I was really worried I would. I was really I love having something to plan for, and it's the wedding. Like, you kind of think, oh, what are you going to do after that? But in a weird way, we both felt kind of relieved. We kind of was kind of like, oh my gosh, and we absolutely just love being married. Like it's so cute. Like we're just like, look how cute we are. Like um so yeah, I'm actually expecting we're expecting our first baby. So they are due just after our first wedding anniversary. So yeah, so it's all very exciting. Yeah, we definitely didn't feel down or get those post-wedding blues that we both kind of thought we might. It was kind of the opposite. It's kind of like you're in this new state. I guess it's the honeymoon phase, isn't it? So it's kind of like going back to when you're first dating, and there's that excitement, and every time he calls me his wife, I get a little bit like, yeah, that's so cool. Like I am your wife. So yeah, it's kind of been the opposite of the wedding blues, which is great.
So good to hear, and congratulations. It's so exciting going into a new season soon. Amazing. It's been so lovely to chat to you. Is there anything else you want to add that we missed or say to engage people listening as we wrap up?
No, I don't think so. No, thank you so much for having me. It's been yeah, it's been a real throwback, like taking me back to the days. So it's been awesome. Thank you.
So good. Nice to reflect on it. And yeah, I'm sure everyone will get a lot out of your episode. So thank you.
No problem.